transporting goods, furniture, timber, or anything like that. The Ransom, Sims and Jeffries traction engine Major. Ransom's a particularly well-regarded manufacturer of lawn mowers and groundkeeping equipment. This was a Fenland engine, hence it's got wider wheels than standard. Thoroughly restored by the previous owner, Mr. James Cowden Corney. It's now owned by Mr. Mark Groom and family. That's another agricultural engine which would have been used on farms or contracted from farm to farm. First of our Burrell engines here this afternoon at Strumpshaw. This is Achilles. Achilles is a single crank compound engine that spent its working life in Sussex and is owned by Mr. Clive Fantz. This one features a half-length cab or awning to keep the weather off. The majority of traction engines, agricultural engines, are single cylinder. The Burrell uniquely made a single crank compound engine which uses the steam twice to give greater efficiency, but still has a single crank. Okay, next one is 10 tons, built 1917. It was changed the name because of its council driver for years was George Bird, and they then changed the name to George. 1932 Essex County Council living van. The engine was worked by the council until 1961. Sold for scrap to Arthur Clark, and probably sold it on to Ben Taylor of Saffron Walden for £115. Engine worked on a contract for Essex County Council for another 2 years before entering preservation in 1964. Spending time in Bedfordshire, Essex and Norfolk. Steamroller Rodney, owned by the Austin family. So we've seen the Aveling roller that's coming round back towards us now. That's your standard roller as envisaged at the turn of the last century. With the development of tarmac roads, rollers such as George were too heavy, and they also have the problem where they went from forward to reverse, they'd have to stop for a second and then you'd get some little divots in your tarmac road. So as Tom is demonstrating there, while it's advanced, we go from forward to backwards in an instant. That's because the engine has no flywheel. This is the second of our Burrell single crank compound traction engines joining us in the arena this sunny afternoon. And this is the Duchess. The Duchess spent her entire working life in Norfolk before being purchased by Mrs. Haylock at Castle Camps a few years ago. Looked after by Mr. Phil Starling, who's taking it easy, having a ride in the coal today. Driven today by Radar and steered by Mr. Andy Rodass. So you see this engine's fitted with a nice set of lamps. So if you're travelling at night, the requirements of the day would require that you'd have your oil lamps trimmed and ready, and you'll see the pair of headlights and the one red rear lamp on. All single crank compound traction engine. So Gordon, the third of our SCC Burrells. This is another one that spent its working life in Surrey and Sussex with Walter Bookham and later with the Lug family. It was purchased by John Bush, who was going underway restoring the engine when he unfortunately passed away. Purchased by Derek Easton and family in 2018, driven today by my father, Robert Humphrey, and steered by Ben Easton. Gentlemen, look at the size of this thing. Number 14 is a Fowler ploughing engine. This is 20 tonnes of engine here. It's built 1919 and is owned by Stephen and Anne and Robert Burton. Okay, it's followed by number 13, the other one of the pair. Now, in case you haven't worked it out, I'll spell it out for you, the members of the public who might not know. Ploughing engines worked in pairs. You see the big winch under the boiler barrel there. They would pull the plough or cultivator or another implement backwards and forwards on the wire rope between the pair of engines, because an engine of this weight you can't drive on the soil, not if you want to cultivate anything in it. These engines for many years were in the museum here at Strumpshaw, and I have got a picture of one of them driving across the park right where we're standing today. And it's nice they've come all the way back from Barnard Castle to join us this weekend. An immaculate job they've done. 1903, engine was moved to Isaac Hall of Wales, Lancashire, and a convertible and spent its mid-years its ownership as a roller. It's the fracture traction engine in 1940, and then was derelict in 1945. Bought and restored by the late John Armour in 1970, and then in 1980 it joined the Richard Parrott collection of Fengate in Wheating, and is used for thrashing and stone crushing, and is owned by Richard Parrott and driven here by Kate Plant and Jack Douglas. An interesting little feature of these Lancashire engines is the full-length cab on top and the tool cabinet in the back of the cab here this weekend with Stuart and Tim Hart, and this is a Stanley steamer, and they're a fascinating vehicle which I don't claim to know very much about. Whenever I see a steam car, it's usually surrounded by concerned looking people and flames and or steam, but this one's running perfectly today. He says, hoping not to jinx it. Okay, number 23. Now this is Wallace and Stevens suspension agricultural engine. The boiler and nails engine as it goes by. You'll see those angled pieces of metal hanging on that bar. They're spuds or clips or cleats, depending where you come from. We always call them spuds. And you put them on the back wheels. You'll see the holes in the back wheels. You pin them on there, and if you're in a wet backyard or a muddy field, you can get a bit of grip to move a valve. Anyway, that's followed by number 40. Number 40 is another one of our steamrollers. The Aveling and Porter, owned by Mr. John Mack. This is an 8-ton roller. Traction engines tend to be designated by horsepower, but steamrollers, they go by weight, and it can be a very arbitrary figure. In fact, this one works in Essex, and Aveling and Porter, interestingly, made more steamrollers than every other manufacturer combined, so imagine that, and all with horses on the front. Now another one of our Showman's engines now, this is a Fowler Showman's tractor called the Rosemary. It's 5 nominal horsepower, built 1924, and it's a Fowler Showman style tractor. It's owned and driven by the Bush family. Look at the detail of workmanship in that. Burrell follows, so that's followed by number 26, which is the Burrell road locomotive Dorothy. Now a road loco has several refinements over the top of your ordinary agricultural engine because it was designed for hauling heavy loads over long distances. You see the rubber tyres, they're sprung, 3 speeds, so you've got an extra high top gear, not to be used all the time, as seems to be the opinion among various people these days, but never mind, we won't get into that today, it's only the first day of the rally. Also fitted with a front tank or a belly tank to increase your range of water, and you might be able to do 25 or 30 miles on the water you carry with one of those against 8 or 9 on an ordinary agricultural engine. Okay, another road roller coming. So it's an Aveling and Porter type DT and exported when she was built. Spent her working life abroad. So there's a few differences you'll spot on this engine compared to the normal, shall we say, UK market roll. This is Jeanette, owned by Mr. Roger Adams from Brandon, and you'll see some similarities between this engine and Spitfire. They both work for Isaac Bull of Wales in Lancashire, and she's fitted with the full-length cab and the big tool cabinet in the back. Real heavy roller this one, single crank compound, and lovely to see it here at Strumpshaw. Okay, next one is the Feudal Clodian Road locomotive. This is called Monarch. This is 14 tons of dimensions, 8 nominal horsepower, built 1913. It was as part of a package of 5 engines for export. For an unknown reason, this one, as one has said, needs to have been kept by Feudals for general duties, including being hired out for work. At the present honours, a new flanged and rivet firebox was fitted in 2007, and this one is owned by the Wheel family. So a word or two on Showman's engines as this one comes by. As the name would suggest, they were built for the travelling showman to use on the fairground, and you'll find a couple more up there generating running lights in Paris. Number 25, I've got my programme in my pocket, I ain't going to read that, that's Queen Mary. Queen Mary is Mr Rudd's old engine from Middleton near King's Lynn.
and for many years she was there until purchased by Terry. She had a full restoration, the full works there, and that's a lovely example of a 3-speed Burrell, and that's come to join us all the way from Kent.
Okay, now, we recently restored in 2020 and owned and driven by the Davenport family.
Okay, and this is followed by Mr. Barry Freeman with his Burrell Jessie. As described in the show catalogue from the Cambridge show of 1922, 100 years ago, a Rolls Royce, the Rolls Royce of traction engines, this one, double crank compound. And Barry's had this engine in his family for many, many years. Always comes out looking smart, travels a fair few miles under its own steam as well. So another regular here at Strumpshaw, and as I said, celebrating its 100th birthday this year. It's that Davenport Sentinel S4. Now, steam wagons fall very definitely into two camps. You've got the over-type foam with the engine on top of the boiler, and guess what? This is an under-type because the engine's under the chassis. So this is an S4 shaft drive, capable of travelling at 45, 50 mile an hour. Come here from Gamlingay yesterday under its own steam. So they really are the forerunner of today's modern diesel lorry.
Stevens expansion engine called Sir William. It's a 7 nominal horsepower, built 1919. It's owned and driven by James Smith.
So there we are, an engine that's no stranger to Strumpshaw, owned for several years by the late Billy Bird. He used to bring it along and do his wood sawing and bits and pieces with it, well remembered, and driven today by Ross Clark. And this is followed by Mr. Blower. Mr. Blower is the Fowler Tiger tractor, owned by Mr. Robert Tyler from Watton in the Vale in Nottinghamshire, so another one of our more further distance visitors, shall we say. Interesting, this engine is exhibited on steel wheels as it would have been original. As you've seen, a lot of the engines here have been fitted with rubbers to make them more comfortable. It's a bit kinder to the drivers and kinder to the road, but this one is exhibited in its original state on steel wheels, and I happen to know it's had an extensive restoration by Rob and his helpers, and is always to be seen in lovely condition.